All right. Let me get closer. It's really nice out here. I like the shade where I'm at. My mom's plants and whatnot. But I want to tell my quick testimony on something that I experienced many years ago in 2009, and it has to do with the verse of the day. If you have the Bible app, you may have the notification of the verse of the day and whatnot. But the verse of the day is in Ephesians chapter 6 verse 12. It says, "For our struggle is not against flesh and blood, contending only with physical opponents, but against the rulers, against the powers, against the world forces of this present darkness, against the spiritual forces of wickedness in the heavenly supernatural places." I woke up with that notification, that was the verse of the day, and it brought me to a place where back in 2009, it reminded me of something that I had experienced my own self. I kind of wanted inbox you what? I ain't here to inbox nobody. I kind of wanted to title this who is Baphomet? Does anybody know who Baphomet is? Who is Baphomet? This thing right here. This thing right here. Y'all see that? Alright. Y'all see that? This thing back in 2009, back in 2009, I had lost everything. I lost my apartment. I lost everything. Everything. I was losing everything. Everything was falling apart. Everything was going wrong in my life. I had stopped going to church. I had stopped reading. I had stopped congregating. I'm sorry, y'all forgive me. My contacts are bothering me. I lost everything in my life. And when that started to happen, I was in a desperate state. I was in desperate need to find a job. I was in desperate need to find my own place. I was living out of my car. Good thing that I still had my job as a paraprofessional at the middle school. Good thing, I was still able to wake up and go to work, but I was living out of my car. Then one day, I didn't know what to do anymore. I didn't know. I stopped going to church. It had been a long time. So one Saturday night, I had gone out to a quinceañera. And I was intoxicated. And I went to this quinceañera, and I got home like at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, and something in me told me that I felt like I was being prompted to go to church the next Sunday morning, right? So I did. I told myself, regardless if I wake up with a hangover or not, I'm still going to go to church. So I went, and when I went to church, I sat there. I'm not here to talk about Baphomet. You can save your comments on there. I went to church, and this lady she came up to me, and she told me that she had a dream of me the night before, which was Saturday night at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, the same time that I was getting to my house from this quinceañera. I was intoxicated and whatnot. So I went to church and I got out before the service was done. And I went to go sit down in the front of. I went to go sit down in front of the church. You know, there was this bench and whatnot, and then I sat there. And when I sat there, I just started meditating. You know, I started just meditating on where I was in life. And this lady comes up to me and she's crying, you know, she has tears in her eyes. And I said, "Is everything okay?" And she said, "Yeah, everything's okay." She said, then I asked her, "Is everything all right? You know, are you okay?" She's like, "Yeah, I'm fine." She's like, "Are you okay?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm okay. I think I'm okay." And she's like, "No, you're not." She's like, "The place that you are in right now is not a good environment for you to be." And I started asking her why. She's like, "Carlos," she's like, "last night at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, the same time I was getting home, I was having a dream, and I saw you in a dream that you were I'm gonna draw it out. That you were on a table, you were laying naked on the table, and there was candles around you, and there was people with their hoods on, and you were on the satanic star. This is the satanic star. And you were being sacrificed to Satan." And I was listening to what she was saying, and she told me that I needed to get out of that place. I needed to get out of that place. That place wasn't a good environment for me. So what happened was, before this happened, I have to touch on that so y'all can understand where I'm coming from. Before that took place, I remember for a whole week at midnight, every day at midnight, 12 o'clock midnight, this image, Baphomet, that image would talk to me in the spirit of my mind. The image, I've never seen this thing before. Never in my life have I ever seen it before. Never did I know what it was. Never did I know what it was called. I didn't know what it was. This again. I had no idea what that was. For a whole week at midnight, it would show up in the spirit of my mind, and it would tell me these things. It would tell me, I could help you. I could give you anything that you want. I could give you money. I could give you cars. I could give you houses. I could give you women. This right here. For a whole week. And at midnight, at 12 o'clock at midnight, it would show up in the middle of the night, and it would talk to me. In my mind, it would talk to me, and it would tell me that it could help me. It would tell me that it could give me money, you know, all these things, for a whole week. And till the last day of that week, I think it was a Sunday, I went outside after it showed up again, and I said, and I was talking to this Baphomet. I was talking to Baphomet after all that he was telling me, and I said to myself, excuse the background noise. I said to myself, if you say who you say you are, send some money my way. I was already talking back to what he was offering me. That thing was offering me materialistic things. He was offering me that he could help me. After a week, after I said that, you know, in a loud voice, I was outside, I was chilling in the middle of the night, and I said, if you say who you say you are, send some money my way. Sure enough, a couple days passed by, and I was, I was in my house, and I was at the kitchen sink, and I was washing dishes, and I saw, I'm washing dishes. No one's at home. No one's at home. I was washing dishes, and I look up, and when I look up, I saw a vision. I saw a face. It was just a face. I saw a face of a man, and I heard in a loud voice, far, far away, that this man was a witch, that he was a warlock. And I freaked out. I was like, okay, I don't know who that is. But 10 minutes later, there was a knock on the door. There was a knock on the door, and somebody was knocking, and it was the same man that I had seen in the vision before me. And as I opened the door, and he came in the house by himself. I didn't even tell him to come in. And he had a bag. He had a bag of vegetables or fruits or whatever, and he was looking for the people that I was staying with, because I was staying with some people who would go to church and whatnot. So he came in, and he opens the fridge. He opens the freezer, the top part. He opens the freezer, and he sticks the bag of vegetables that he had. He sticks it in there, and I forgot about it. I went about my business throughout the evening and throughout the night. To the next morning, I woke up, and I have the habit of opening up the top and the bottom door of the refrigerator together. So when I opened that, there was in the freezer the bag that this man had brought. The bag wasn't even frozen. The items, the things that were inside the bag, they were not frozen. They were rotten, and there was this nasty smell coming out of that. So right away, I told the people that I was staying with, I'm like, hey, I forgot to tell you that this happened to me yesterday. I told them about the vision that I had when I was washing dishes. I saw the face of the man, and I heard a voice warning me that he was a witch, that he was a warlock, that he was a Satan worshiper, And when she saw what had happened to the vegetables that this man put in the freezer, they didn't freeze. These things were rotten, and they had this nasty rotten smell. Right away when I told her that, she said, no, this is already witchcraft. Throw this out. This is not good. Right away she started calling the pastor, for prayer and whatnot. That's when I understood that what I had said in the middle of the night at 12 o'clock midnight for Baphomet to help me because of what the things that he was offering me. I said, if you say who you say you are, send some money my way. So in my state of desperation, in being in a desperate state of needing money and needing a job and getting back on my feet, I was struggling to get myself together, because when I first got there to that town in Faribault, Minnesota, I was successful. I had my 3 jobs, I had my house, and I had my car, and I was going to church. But the minute that I stopped going to church, the minute that I stopped praying, the minute that I started seeking God, all these things started to happen. So I'm there, this happened, and then one night I remember I was chilling outside in the parking lot. I was sitting there in a car, and two people show up. They get closer to me, and one of them I knew from church. The other one was the same man that I seen in the vision, the one that had came in and put that stuff in the refrigerator, the one that I was getting a warning saying that he was a warlock, a witch, a Satan worshiper. When that happened, this man that I saw in the vision stood to a side. He didn't even get closer to me. He stood to a side, and the guy that I used to know from church, he left the church. He starts talking to me. He talked to me for 2 hours. He talked to me for 2 hours, and he said, he talked to me for 2 hours, and he said, "How's it going, Carlos?" And I said, doing all right. He's like, "What happened to you?" And I'm like, "What are you talking about?" He's like, "When you got here to this town," he's like, you had it all together, God was with you, and he's like, "You dressed well, you look pretty good, with your Stacey Adams shoes, because I love Stacey Adams." And excuse me. And he's all like, "You dress well." He's like, "Where is your God now? Where is your God now?" And he's like, "I could help you. I could help you." And he started telling me, "I could help you. I could give you money. I could give you houses. I could give you cars. I could give you women. I could give you anything that you want." The same words that Baphomet was telling me in the middle of the night for a whole week in my mind. This image would come up in my mind. Satan was talking to me. He was putting things in my mind, through this image. I've never seen this thing before. I never knew what it was. When this man started talking to me, telling me the same words that this thing was telling me, he told me, "I could help you. I could give you anything that you want. I could, give you houses. I could give you cars. I could give you women. I could give you." He's like, "But just leave the church. Leave Christianity." For 2 hours, he sat there and he talked to me. And every 5-10 minutes, he would tell me, "It's not me talking, it's my master. It's 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 not me talking, it's my master." He would tell me that every 5-10 minutes. He would talk to me about witchcraft. He would talk to me about, sacrifices that they would do. Because where I lived behind a railroad track. And behind that railroad track, there's a little pathway to a lake and to an island. And he would tell me that they would go and get cats, and they would sacrifice cats. They would sacrifice the cats, and they would let the blood shed on them, so that they could get more power, so that way demons could come in them and be powerful. That's it. He would tell me those things, and he told me, he's like, "Who do you want to hurt? Who has disrespected you? Who has hurt you?" He's like, "Bring me a red onion, bring me dirt from the cemetery, bring me all these things." He's like, "We could cause some damage to some people right now." And I didn't, and all this in those 2 hours, I didn't say anything, I didn't say anything. I was praying in my mind, I was telling God, "God, help me." The reason why I was telling God to help me, because you know what? I was this close. I was this close. I was so close in giving my soul to Satan. I was that close in giving my soul to the enemy. I knew that all these material things that Satan was offering me, the cars, the money, the houses, the women, I knew that it was going to cost me something. It was going to cost me my soul. And I was in a point where in my life that I didn't care anymore about anybody. I didn't care about myself. This was back in 2009. And when this man was telling me all these things, that he could help me and he could offer me all this stuff, I know that it was Satan himself talking to me. I know that it was Satan himself offering me these things, and it all started with this image, Baphomet. It all started with him talking to me in the middle of the night. And I was so close. I was really, 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 really close. I was really close in giving my soul to Satan. When this man, after 2 hours, that I sat there and I listened to what he had to say, I felt that I was fighting. I felt that I was fighting for my life. I really felt that there was a struggle going on. There was a war going on for my soul at that moment in time. That's why the scripture says, for our struggle is not against flesh and blood, contending only with physical opponents, but against the rulers, against the powers, against the world forces of this present darkness, against the spiritual forces of wickedness in the heavenly supernatural places. I'm so glad that I never took that step. I thought about it. I thought about, giving my soul to the enemy after I had gotten saved, after, many years of being in church and whatnot. But something inside of me wouldn't let me. When this man started talking to me about my gift, about what God has given me, he told me this. And this is where you have to understand that the enemy has a plan for your life. You have to understand that Satan has a plan for your life, and he knows what God has called you to. That's why he brings a lot of distraction. That's why he brings a lot of confusion. That's why he brings a lot of discouragement to your life, so that you won't respond to the call of God in your life. When this happened, he started telling me, Carlos, God gave you something that he does not give to a lot of people. That gift that he gave you, if you use it for my master, you could be a very powerful person. You could be a very powerful person. That's what this man was telling me. If you use your gift that God gave you for Satan, for my master, you could be a very powerful person. But he also told me, he's like, but if you go with God, if you let God use you, God can use you in a very powerful way. See the difference? I could be a very powerful person if I use my gift for Satan, or I could let God use me in a very powerful way if I allow him to use my life and the gift that he gave me. After he told me that, I told him, you know what? You're going to leave my house, and you never, ever, ever again gonna step into my premises. I don't ever want to see you again. I believe in that point, that's when God gave me the understanding to see that the enemy is after your ministry. The enemy is after the call of God in your life. The enemy does not want us to respond to the call of God. The enemy does not want us to get back to the things of God. That's why there's so many distractions. That's why there's so many oppositions. That's why there's so many problems with yourself, problems with your family. That's why the enemy does so much. He does a lot of things in our lives that draw us away from God. They draw us away from God. Problems with our parents, problems with our children, problems with our husband and wives, a lot of these things, a lot of these oppositions, and if we are not spiritually aware of the battle that we are in, that could be the death of us. It could be the death of our spiritual lives. It could be spiritual death. And I know that a lot of you are there right now, that you don't even know what to do anymore. You don't even know what way to turn. You don't even know what way to look. But I'm telling you that if you look up, if you just look up and you ask him to help you, because that's what happened to my life. After all this happened, after all this that I experienced, I ended up here in the valley. This happened in Minnesota. After that happened, I went to Teen Challenge. I went to rehab for 4 months, and I left, and I came back over here. When I came back over here, I had to face my past. I had to face um I had to face my past in the sense that I had to confront my past, and I had to accept my past, and I had to find that I needed to close that chapter in my life of the abuse that took place. You see this right here? This scar? Well, there's metal in here. There's a piece of metal with 8 screws that when that situation happened, I came here and I was in a spiritual, society calls it a midlife crisis, but really what I was experiencing was a spiritual awakening. I had to go through a lot of things. I had to really, you know, look within myself and really ask myself, okay, well, you know, well, what's the problem? What am I dealing with? Why can I not move forward in life? Why can I not, you know, be at peace with myself? Well, what happened was that I got into depression. Major depression hit my life. I was already seeing voices. I mean, hearing voices. I was seeing shadows. I was seeing demons. You know, I was in a verge of insanity. I was losing my mind. And I believe that all this happened because I said no to the devil. I said no to Satan. I said, no, I'm not going to give you my soul. No, I'm not going to allow you to help me, because with your help, with all these materialistic things that you are offering me, I'm going to lose myself. I'm going to really lose myself. I'm going to lose my soul. It's going to cost me my soul for to be at peace with these materialistic things. And I think that's why spiritual warfare hit my life like never before. I was going through something major in my life that it was a life or death situation. I ended up in the mental hospital not once, but 5 different times because I wanted to commit suicide. I was hearing voices, you know, to hurt myself. I was hearing voices to hurt others. I had anger problems, you know, anger issues and just problems here and there. There was no peace at night. There was no peace at night. There was no peace at all. There was no peace in my soul. There was no rest. And when this happened, insomnia hit. I couldn't even sleep. 1 or 2 hours, that's the most I would sleep. I slept 1 hour and that was it. I was losing my mind. I was going crazy, you know. I got to the point, and I know a lot of teenagers do this. And it's so sad that people go through this. Before I got this tattoo right here, I was cutting myself. I cut myself 12 times. I was cutting because I did not want to feel the pain that I felt in here anymore. I didn't want to carry this pain anymore. So I started to cut myself so that I could have a way out of the pain. My parents didn't know what was going on. They thought that, you know, all I wanted to do was smoke and do drugs, and I was acting like this because I didn't have my drugs. Though I had my drugs in my pocket, you know, in my pocket, it wasn't the fact that I didn't have drugs to do. I didn't have weed to smoke. I didn't have money to go drinking. I had all that. I had all that, but my parents did not understand what I was really dealing with. I was dealing with issues inside that were caused by a lot of things in my life. I grew up in a dysfunctional family, being rejected by everybody. You know, when I came to terms with myself and I said Nobody else in this world is going to help me but God. And I was able to turn to God in the four walls. I didn't find. I'm gonna say something. I want to say something so powerful here. I did not find God in the four walls of a building. I did not find God. God did not show up in my life in the four walls of the church and of a religious structure. God showed up in the four walls of my room. In this house, God showed up in the four walls of my room. And when that happened, I had no choice but to surrender to Him completely. I had no choice but to allow Him to help me and restore my mind and restore my life, and heal my heart because of all the pain that I carried in here, of the pain of the past, the pain of the abuse, the pain of even the pain of losing my own daughter, losing my daughter. And that's a whole different story for a whole different time. But I have no communication with my daughter. It's been 3 years now. Not because I don't want to, but because her mom doesn't allow her to. But God will change that situation. I'm believing God that He will. Anyways, after all that, I try to look for answers. I would go to church and I would try to look for answers. But I want to tell you something. This image, Baphomet, Satan, can never bring you what you need. The desire within us. Ecclesiastes 3:11 says that God has put a sense of purpose inside of us. Inside of every single one of us, God has put purpose. God has put a desire for us to live. He has put a reason for us to live deep down inside of your soul. That's why and I know that this happened to me. There was an emptiness inside my heart. There was an emptiness inside my soul that I tried to fill it with a lot of things: money, work, sex, drugs, alcohol, relationships, false soul ties, materialistic things. All that I try to fill up that void that I carried inside me. Nothing in this world is able to fill that void. Nothing in this world is able to fill that emptiness that you feel. That's the reason why God created that empty space. That space is to be God filled, because God wants to come into that area in your life and fill your life and give you peace and give you joy. I came across this prayer, the warrior's prayer. If you are one who is struggling, within your walk with God, if you are one who is struggling in your walk with God, I'm telling you, there is no depth that you are in right now that God's hand cannot save you from. There is no depth in this world that His love cannot reach you from. If you are in a pit, and if you feel that you are in a pit, that you've lost it all, God can go into the realms of that pit and help you and assist you and get you out, because that's what He did to me. My life, I have a lot of people on here that know how I used to live. They'll know that how the things that I used to do, the way that I used to think, the way that I used to talk, the way that I used to carry myself. But it's no longer I that lives in me, but it's the Christ that lives inside of me, that is allowing me to give me the strength to keep moving forward and never to look back. And if I look back, it's only to tell you where I've been and where I come from, and to be able to offer you hope and a future, just like God says in Jeremiah 29:11. For I know the plans that I have for you, plans of goodness, plans to do you good, plans to help you, a future to bring you peace. Because just like I was saying, there's two plans for your life: the plan of God and the plan of the enemy. God is here to give you a hope and a future, but also the enemy is here. The Bible says that Satan is here to steal, kill, and destroy. He hates you. Satan hates you. Satan hates the image that God created you in. Because if you go back and you read Genesis, he says that God created mankind in our likeness, in our image. In the image of God, he created man and women. There is an image inside of us, a godly image that Satan hates. And that is the thing that Satan so desires to kill. That is the image that Satan is after. He wants to kill the God in you. He wants to kill the presence of God in our lives. That's why he brings all these kinds of distractions and so much hate and so much problems with our families, and even problems with your own self. He doesn't want you to know the truth. Jesus said that you shall know the truth, and the truth shall set you free. So therefore, when I came across this prayer, I'm just going to read it real quick. It says, the warrior's prayer. Heavenly Father, your warrior prepares for battle. Today I claim victory over Satan by putting on the whole armor of God. God gave us, just like soldiers, soldiers have their helmet, they have their gear, they have their armor, they have their guns, they have everything like that. We are soldiers of God. It says, I put on the girdle of truth. May I stand firm in the truth of your word, so I will not be a victim of Satan's lies. I put on the breastplate of righteousness. May I guard my heart from evil. May I guard my heart from evil, so I will remain pure and holy, protected under the blood of Jesus Christ. I put on the shoes of peace. May I stand firm in the good news of the gospel, so that your peace will shine through me and be a light to all I encounter. I take the shield of faith. May I be ready for Satan's fiery darts of doubt, denial, and deceit, so I will not be vulnerable to spiritual defeat. Let's go back. May I be ready for Satan's fiery dart. There was an interruption. Satan is always throwing darts of doubt, denial, and deceit through our minds. That's why we have to take care of our mind, of our thought process. We have to, allow God to renew our mind. The book of Romans chapter 12 verse 2 says, do not be conformed any longer to the patterns of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. We have to allow God to possess our minds and control our way of thinking. And every negative thought that comes in, you have the right to rebuke that thought. If it's not a godly thought, obviously it's coming from the enemy. He is the father of lies. He's here to tell you lies. I put on the helmet of salvation. May I keep my mind focused on you, so Satan will not have a stronghold on my thoughts. I take the sword of the Spirit. May the two-edged sword of your word be ready in my hand, so I can expose the tempting words of Satan. By faith, the warrior has put on the whole armor of God. I am prepared to live this day in spiritual victory. Once again, you have the power to tell the enemy that he is rebuked. And do not allow Satan to tell you lies. Do not allow Satan to come up into your mind, just like he did to me through this image, and try to tell me that he could help me, when in all reality, God is the only one who can help you get out of your mess. God is the only one that can help you get out of the addiction that you have. God is the only one to help you in your struggle, in your troubles, and your problems. God is the only one that can restore you. God is the only one that can give you peace. God is the only one that can give you joy. God is the only one that he can change your life completely from the inside out. Allow him to do that. In the middle of the night, when you are struggling, call out to Jesus. That's what I had to do many times when I knew that nobody else was going to help me in this world but God. I had to cry out to him. I cried out to God when I felt the demons try to attack me. I know that you all heard this spiritual sleep paralysis. This thing where you're laying at night and you feel something on top of you, or even something grab you from the back, grab you, and you try to move and you try to say something. That's spiritual attack right there. That's already the enemy. If you were not aware, if we don't understand what's really going on, that's the enemy trying to have an influence in our lives. He has his army attacking us. He has his army attacking us. And if we are not aware of what's really going on and what it really means to struggle in the spiritual realm, we will always have to be defeated and live defeated lives. Pray that God opens up your heart, and He opens up your mind, and that He gives you divine protection. And thank you for watching, and thank you for listening to my testimony. This was just a test, and I just decided to go with the flow. Alright, y'all have a blessed day. Y'all stay good. God bless.